Hey guys, this is Avilo here, and I am bringing you a video about Legacy of the Void. And what is this video about? This video is going to be discussing the economy difference between Protoss and Protoss. Protoss in Legacy of the Void and Protoss in Heart of the Swarm. Because apparently people think that there's no... People seem to think Legacy of the Void economy is... or that Chrono Boost is worse than it is in Heart of the Swarm or whatnot in Legacy of the Void, which is completely not true. There was a thread about this. I made a thread about this, and people don't seem to understand how important it is to get boosted workers at the start of a game. So let's, which one should we? Let's go over this one first. Let's go over the Heart of the Swarm economy. And I had to sort of jury-rig this a little bit, but basically what we're going to be doing for this test is, you'll see at the start of the game, I'm getting up to 12 workers so we can mimic the 12 worker start in Legacy of the Void, but we're doing this in a Heart of the Swarm game. Alright, so for this test we're going to start at the 3-minute mark, which I managed to sync up with my Nexus having 25 chrono. So just for reference, we're going to assume that the 25 is a 0, so once I hit 50 energy, that will be when I first get my chrono boost, and we're starting at 3 minutes, just for reference. And the goal is to see how quickly we can saturate 2 bases with the Heart of the Swarm chrono boost compared to the Legacy of the Void chrono boost. And so once again, every time chrono hits 50, I'm going to chrono here. There we go. I feel like, and I'm doing the same exact build in both games, by the way. I'm even sending, so once we have like 16 workers on each base, that'll be like sort of the cutoff point. We'll have 2 base saturation, and I'm mining gas in both games with 3 workers. So let's see. And I already have a 3rd Nexus right now. So we're almost to the 16 worker mark. Once again, constantly chronoing. Also, the other thing to note, in Heart of the Swarm, you gotta remember, guys, you don't start off the game... You don't start off the game with Chrono Boost on your natural Nexus either. You don't start with it on your main or your natural. Not to mention, a lot of times you would use Chrono Boost on other things, so you wouldn't have it for your probes in the first place. So let me just rewind a little bit so we can get a better estimate of when I had 16 probes on each base. So we'll say around now. We'll say around the 7-minute, 42-second mark is when I was able to saturate 2 bases while constantly using Chrono Boost when I had the 25 energy to Chrono Boost. So remember, we started the game. We jerry-rigged this game. We started at 3 minutes, so that took about 4 minutes and 42 seconds in a Heart of the Swarm game with Heart of the Swarm Chrono Boost to get 2 base saturation. The Nexus is a little bit slightly above halfway done there, but anyways. So 4 minutes, 42 seconds for Heart of the Swarm Chrono Boost. Now, let's look at Legacy of the Void Chrono Boost. The guy in that thread wanted to do mathematics vacuum tests, so that's what we're doing here. And I just want to demonstrate. And once again, we start this at 0 because... Now, once again, you're starting the game in Legacy of the Void with Chrono Boost at the very beginning of the game, which is... I don't think people, even on Team Liquid, seem to understand the insane difference in economy that you get from. Imagine, let me present to you this. Imagine, guys, if you started a game with 15 workers and your opponent started the game with 12 workers. Doesn't seem like it would make that much of a difference, but obviously 3 extra workers. If every worker is giving you approximately 45 minerals per minute extra. That's 135 minerals for 3 extra workers that you're getting, so you're able to afford more stuff earlier than your opponent, because you're getting that money earlier in the game to snowball the game. And you can already see from the length of this replay, I reached 2 base saturation way before 4 minutes and 42 seconds. So let's just check this out. Once again, same build, Nexus first, getting the gas, same exact builds. Same exact build arenas. Already saturated my main. 3rd Nexus. Almost on 2 base saturation. And then, okay, so there we are. So we'll say about 3 minutes and 20 seconds or so. And the Nexus is at this... is approximately. I built these as soon as I could, if I remember right, for both games. The third nexus. It's about at the same place that the Heart of the Swarm. This nexus is at the same. It's almost at the exact same completion that the Heart of the Swarm nexus was at, except 1 minute, almost 1 minute and 20 seconds ahead. Like this nexus in Legacy of the Void is almost a minute ahead of where the nexus is in Heart of the Swarm. That is a ridiculous imbalance between the two games. That is a ridiculous imbalance in terms of economy that the Protoss player is getting in both of the games. And the thing that I don't understand is why the community is why they're shit talking me and not looking at, like, not doing an actual test like I just did here. And once again, the reason I'm making this video and doing this test is to show you the difference between the two games, because I feel like people aren't taking my word for it because they're just saying, oh, that's Avilo, he's just complaining about balance. When you can see between the two games, there's a ridiculous difference in terms of you know, at the times that you're getting the things in both games. I mean, this is a minute ahead of Heart of the Swarm. The third nexus is almost at the same completion, a minute ahead in the game, and that is a big deal. That is a huge fucking deal, especially compared to the fact that when you think about it, the Zerg and the Protoss players' macro mechanics were they were nerfed. Zerg only has 3 larvae, and Terran has a mule that is slightly weakened in Legacy of the Void, but Protoss's Chrono Boost is actually better. It ends up being better in Legacy of the Void than it is in Heart of the Swarm, which means that there's a that's why a lot of TVP games you guys see, the Protoss will have a 3rd and a 4th and a 5th base, sometimes 1 or 2 bases ahead of the Terran player, and you may be wondering, like, Avilo, that's, like, this doesn't make any sense. It does. Let's go back into the other game once again. And the reason I have to do this, the reason I have to go back and forth but in these games to show you, is so that you have a visual aid, so that people will stop saying that, people stop using ad hominem attacks and will look at the actual gameplay of the game and how the game is being played and the difference between the two games. Once again, we started this one at 3 minutes. I synced up the chrono to have 25 chrono. Alright, so here we go. 3 minute mark. Here we go. And then at 50 energy, I chronoed. So this is with constant chronos. This is Heart of the Swarm. This is a Heart of the Swarm game. We started, the 3 minute mark is our 0 point. That's where the game started. At 0 seconds is the 3 minute mark. And once again, once I have 400, I start the third nexus. Still not fully saturated on the natural. Now, so rewind here. So once I have 16 on both bases is when we'll say, so around now. Around that 7 minutes, 45 seconds. So 3 minutes, so that's 4 minutes. It took around 4 minutes and 45 seconds. And once again, you'll notice the nexus is around at the same completion that the Legacy of the Void third nexus is, except the Legacy of the Void nexus is 1 minute in advance, and it's already at the same completion a minute earlier in the game, which is that's crazy to me that you're getting a full 2-base saturation in Legacy of the Void approximately 1 minute faster than you do in Heart of the Swarm. So once again, this is Legacy of the, no, sorry, this is Heart of the Swarm game. This is a Heart of the Swarm. It took 4 minutes and 45 seconds to have the Nexus at this completion, and to have full base 2 saturation. Now let's go back to Legacy of the Void. Once again, let's go back to Legacy of the Void. Let's go back to the Legacy of the Void game, so that you guys can convince. And we're starting this one at 0 seconds because you start with you start with the 12 workers in Chrono at 0 in Legacy of the Void. So I mean, that's the difference, guys, between having Chrono Boost available. I mean, at least that seems to be the theory, and what you see in the gameplay seems to add up. It seems to make complete sense, because once again, in this is Legacy of the Void. Even the second Nexus starts immediately with Chrono, which I don't think that's to be honest, it's an oversight by the developers. You're not supposed to start the game with Chrono Boost as Protoss. That is not supposed to happen. And that's why I think we have this accelerated economy in Legacy of the Void. And I'm glad that I can show you this by demonstrating. So once again, we'll just say 3 minutes 20. It took 3 minutes and 20 seconds in Legacy of the Void to reach a 2-base saturation, and the third Nexus is around the same completion mark as the Heart of the Swarm one. But this is all one minute. It took 1 minute less in Legacy of the Void to reach the same point. So I mean, I hope people will look at this video, and I hope they will look at the thread, and I hope they'll reach the same conclusion I did. And regardless of whatever, because this is the gameplay of the game. This is the gameplay of StarCraft 2. You can do whatever fancy math you want behind it, but this is the actual gameplay, and this is where we are in the game at, with the assuming we had a 12-worker start in Heart of the Swarm and then a 12-worker start here. It's just showing you that the reason I did this test is to demonstrate that the Chrono Boost in Legacy of the Void is actually stronger when it's used on your probes. And you have to remember, most of the time in Legacy of the Void, it is being used constantly on the probes. We can obviously, we can start testing it when you switch the Chrono Boost on and off. But I think it's pretty clear that that Legacy of the Void, if we're, that thread on Team Liquid where the guy apparently did all his fancy math and stuff, he did that in a vacuum. So I'm also showing you in a vacuum that he is actually incorrect. Legacy of the Void Chrono Boost is way, way stronger because you have it infinitely. Also, Legacy of the Void Chrono Boost, there's no room for human error. Keep in mind the test that I'm doing. On 20, once my Nexus in Heart of the Swarm hits 25 energy, I'm chrono boosting. Whereas in a longer game, a Protoss player may not be doing that exactly with every 25 energy that they have in Heart of the Swarm. Whereas in Legacy of the Void, no matter what happens, their probes are being chronoed the whole time. They can't forget to do it because it's on their building. It really does remind me of when the larva, the automatic injects used to be in the game, and it made the game really imbalanced for Zerg because they would never forget, they never would forget an inject. There was no room for human error at all. So anyways, once again, it took 4 minutes. So, just here, LOTV Econ is 3 minutes 20 seconds, and the Heart of the Swarm Econ took around 4 minutes and 45 seconds approximately to reach full 2-base saturation. And also, so the third Nexus once again, and that's with the third Nexus in both games being at the same place. So in Legacy of the Void, Protoss is getting their third Nexus about a minute and 20 seconds ahead of where they would be in Heart of the Swarm. And this demonstrates an imbalance in the game. There's something. I mean, this is clearly an imbalance in the economy that Protoss is able to get, and what it also demonstrates is how important the first starting workers that you build, being able to boost your workers at the beginning of a game has a huge impact, a very, very huge impact on being able to saturate your bases more quickly. Yeah, what could Blizzard do to fix this? Should they address this? Should they fix this? I absolutely think they should. I absolutely think that in Legacy of the Void they should make it so you can't access Chrono Boost at the very least until you have a pylon, perhaps. Maybe until you have a gateway, but at least test it, probably until you have a gateway, I would say, but at least Protoss should have to have a pylon completed or constructed before Chrono Boost is unlocked, because it's right now, from what we can see between the two games, it's giving Protoss an unfair advantage over the other two races in terms of their starting game, the economy at the start of the game. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you can look at this analysis subjectively, because a lot of people, surprisingly enough, even on Team Liquid, a lot of people were not looking at this they weren't looking at this objectively. They weren't analyzing. They just kept saying, ha 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 ha, look at this guy that made this thread. He's right. Avilo must be wrong. Ha ha, Avilo. Whereas, no, of course, as usual, my game theory is supported by the actual test that I just ran. So yeah, my theory is supported by the actual gameplay of the game, and that's all that matters. It doesn't matter whether you think I'm right or wrong. You can test this yourself, and you can see for a fact that Legacy of the Void Chrono Boost is in fact stronger than Heart of the Swarm Chrono Boost in what it allows for Protoss' economy at the start of a game. So thanks for watching. Hope you guys discuss, and I hope Blizzard will address this. In hopefully the next patch, they can address this. Let me know what you guys think. Peace out, everybody.